Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Hari Om friends. Team Param Vedanta welcomes you to DISHA 59, a new series of an inward journey we're taking to discover our inner strength and happiness through the Bhagavad Gita. Today, we're going to study Kshetra Kshetragna Vibhaga Yōgaha, the wonderful chapter where Krishna reinforces the Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. Today, Sri Ullas Ameya is going to explain the final set of verses 25 to 35. He will also be explaining the topic of jñāna Phalam as explained in the Tattva Bodha. Our revered Guru, Dr. Timappa Hegde, will introduce this topic for us to set the context, and we will have a teaching quiz conducted by Srimati Neeta and Srimati Vidya. Now it's shloka time, and Srimati Sukanya is going to chant and explain the first shloka, Vishuddham Param Satchidananda Rupam, of Sri Rama Bhujangam, composed by Sri Adi Shankaracharya. I invite Madam Sukanya to chant and explain this wonderful shloka, please.
Thank you, Madam. I am going to chant Sri Rama Bhujanga Parayata Stotra. This is the first of the 29 slokas written by Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya. It has 12 syllables in each pada. Because of this meter, Chandas, it is called Bhujanga Parayata. This prayer is dedicated to Sri Rama, the 7th incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Verse goes like this. Vishuddham param satchidananda rupam gunadharam adharahinam varenyam mahantam vibhantam guhantam gunantam sukhantam swayam dhama ramam prapadye. Vishuddham, pure, param, highest, satchidananda rupam, greatest form of existence, consciousness and bliss. Gunadhara, repository of good qualities. Adharahinam, not needing any support. Varenyam, worshipful. Mahantam, all-pervading. Vibhantam, radiant. Guhantam, residing the heart of all beings. Gunantam, beyond all the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. Sukhantam, ultimate happiness. Swayam dhama ramam prapadye. I take refuge in that Rama. All the gunas glorified here are in superlative degree the best. Sri Rama, who is the purest and greatest form of existence, consciousness and bliss, is the personification of ultimate happiness. He is the repository of innumerable good qualities, Jagat Adhisthana, self-supporting, while himself not needing any support. Most worshipful, all-pervading, most resplendent, one who resides in the hearts of all beings. He is beyond all gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas. He is free of all materialistic pleasures. To that Maryada Purushottama I prostrate. Sri Rama, who is the personification as Maryada Purushottama, is endowed with the best of human qualities. He is an icon of righteousness, dharma. In Ramayana, he is declared as Ramo Vigrahavan Dharma, an embodiment of dharma and innumerable virtues. His Nama Japa has immense benefits. The syllable Ra from Ashtakshari mantra, Om Namo Narayana, and the syllable Ma is from the Panchakshari mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. These two syllables together are specifically chosen for chanting, for invoking bhakti and purity of mind. Chanting Ramanama Japa with devotion is a step leading one to liberation. Ramanama Taraka mantra is very powerful. Chanting this mantra enables the devotee to cross over the ocean of samsara. Shri Rama Jai Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Rama Jai Jai Rama, Jai Jai Rama. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Sukanya for introducing another beautiful Rama mantra to us. Sadashiva samarambham Shankaracharya madhyamam Asmadacharya paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We come to the concluding DISHA session on the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the earlier classes, we had seen the topics, 6 topics that Arjuna had asked. What is kshetra? What is kshetrajna? What is jñānam? What is jñēyam? What is purusha and prakriti? And as you can see, these 6 topics can be reduced into essentially 2, Atma and Atma, and the third very important topic being values. As you will see in the concluding part of this chapter, Shri Krishna again and again gives us a great importance as a take-home message that he wants us to know this Atma Anatma Viveka, which is same as Kshetra Kshetrajna Viveka, which is the same as Drik Drishya. That means Drik is the seer, Drishyam is the experienced universe. And in this chapter referred also as Purusha and Prakriti. This is a verse that we concluded in the last Disha session. And the verse goes like this. Ya evam veti Purusha Prakritim cha gunai saha sarvata vartamanopi nasa bhuya abhijayate. This is an important thing for us. And the basis of this will be the understanding of all the verses that we are going to study in this chapter. Shri Krishna concludes at the end of the Purusha Prakriti discussion. If you understand this Atma Anatma Viveka, this Kshetra Kshetrajna Purusha Prakriti Viveka, if you're very clear about it, then what happens? Sarvata Vartamanopi. You will learn to accept yourself just the way you are. I've experienced completion in myself just the way I am, because now I know I'm not this body-mind complex. I'm something far greater. I'm playing this limited role of body-mind complex. And so whatever difficulties that we may be going through right now, if I can see it as a role play, then he gives the benefit. Na sa bhuya abhijayate. Such a person will not have punarjanma. He would have broken the cycle of birth, death, rebirth, and so on. It is like Swamiji tells us again and again, this does not normally happen, but this is what is really spiritual awakening. Now, supposing you have woken up from your dream, but something strange happens. Even though I have woken up from my dream, normally the dream world, the dream body, the dream events disappear. And you suddenly wake up from pratibhasika to paramarthika. Now imagine a hypothetical situation where we have been awoken from our dream, but the dream world continues. Now I am able to see myself as the dreamer, who's the creator of the dream, who's the sustainer of the dream. And yet what I'm seeing is the dream world continues. Now that I know my higher nature, my vyavahara self, I know that anything that happens to my dream body, which I see on the screen of my mind, my dream family, my dream possessions, my dream profession, cannot really affect me, because now I am anchored in the vyavahara, watching the paramarthika. This Swamiji says is the state of a jivan mukta. Because when a person awakens to a spiritual understanding, the world and all the problems in the world do not disappear. And this is what Shri Krishna wants us to know. Ya evam veti. If you understand this, then what happens? Sarvata vartamanopi. You experience, you allow whatever your body-mind situation is. But for such a person, nasa bhuya abhijayate, because now there is a jump from being a creature, being a creator. This is what I want you to see the opening verse that Ullas is going to explain, where the word Atma, Atma, Atma comes 3 times. And certainly Ullas is going to explain that. I want you to be very attentive to the same Atma 3 times, because Shri Krishna somewhere else in the 5th chapter says, Ya pashyati sa pashyati. If you are able to get it, then you have got it. Let us see, be very attentive to this opening verse that Ullas is going to explain about being able to understand about this Atma, which will be explained in 3 words. What are we supposed to be very attentive to when Ullas is speaking about the various sadhanas and the benefits? Let us understand what is this called Hridaya Granthi. There is a knot in our heart. And because of the knot in the heart, we are all limited beings. Now, can we break this knot? This breakage of the knot is called Vidyate Hridaya Granthi. And what is this Hridaya Granthi? Avidya, my ignorance of my true nature. And because I do not know, a desire comes in my mind that if I do this, then I will be complete. And once a desire comes, you have to do something. You become a karta. And whenever you do karta, whenever you are a karta, there is punya or papa, and that leads to punarjanma. And this is what is called the Hridaya Granthi. Ullas, please, we will listen to Ullas on the last part of the 13th chapter.
Thank you, sir. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We have seen until now 3 sessions already done on chapter 13. And it is like one of the most juiciest chapters. It is in the 3rd Shatakam, and the start of Jnana Yoga is there. And what we have seen until now is, we have seen until verse number 24, where Arjuna had asked in the last chapter the questions on what is Kshetra, Kshetrajna, KK, what is Jnanam, Jnayam, JJ, and what is Purusha and Prakriti, PP. So, and in nutshell, if we see, all that was told was that Prakriti is something which is the body-mind complex, the anatma part of it, the one that we generally mistakenly refer ourselves to or identify ourselves to. But the Purusha is the consciousness part, which is what we are always, in all our studies, we are trying to identify ourselves to gain that knowledge, to gain that understanding that that's what we are. And now in the subsequent verses, we are going to see what are the sadhanas to achieve that type of a knowledge about this Purusha and Prakriti, and then what is the Phalam of getting that. So again, just until now, we saw that this knowledge, once we get the knowledge of Purusha and Prakriti, it is a liberating knowledge. It is a knowledge that will give us moksha. Like there cannot be any higher knowledge than that which gives us moksha. And how do we get that moksha? Is all that is there in this knowledge is that we have to correct our vision. We have to correct our identification. What is the difference between a jnani and ajnani is that a jnani identify himself with the Purusha part of that existence. Whereas ajnani like us, we identify ourselves with the Prakriti part of it. And that's why all the things that are the problems or the suffering or the changes that happen to the Prakriti, we think they are happening to us. So all that we have to do is to remove that ignorance. And once we do that, it will remove all our sorrows. It will take care of all our... There is no need for rebirths also, because rebirth again happens to that body-mind complex only. So this is what we have covered so far. Now, in the 25th verse, as sir was mentioning, this is a very profound verse in which it says, let me just chant it. Dhyane natmani pashyanti kechidatmanam atmana anye sankhena yogena karma yogena chapare. Here we are talking about how to gain this knowledge. Now that we know that this is liberating knowledge, but what are the means by which people get this knowledge? So ultimately, we see that the goal is self-knowledge. But to achieve any type of a goal, there are different paths to achieve something. For example, if I want to go from Bangalore to Delhi, I could go by bus, I could go by train, I could go by plane, any which way. Everything has its own pros and cons. Some might be faster, some might be cheaper, some might be more scenic, etc. But at the end of the day, my destination is the same. Every path will have its own, whether it is you go through Bhakti Yoga or Raj Yoga or Karma Yoga and all those things. So once you reach there, that is where the destination is. Now, the thing that is being pointed out here is Anyena Sankhena Yogena Karma Yogena Chapare. So the first thing it says is Karma Yogena, which is Karma Yoga. And here Karma Yoga is a combination of both Karma Yoga as well as Upāsana Yoga. Now in Karma Yoga, there are what do we actually achieve out of Karma Yoga is first, we have to purify our mind. We have to do chitta shuddhi. All those shad vikaras that we have, Rāga, Dvēṣa, Moha, Lobha, Mad, Matsarya, all those have to be gone out of our mind, and that happens through karma yoga. So first stage is that. Then once our mind becomes calm, nirmal, then we have to follow upāsana yoga. And again, upāsana also we can do japa or different type of meditations and all. But again, the idea is to get ekagrata of chitta. Now that we have this instrument available to us, which is very much refined, that is when we go into jñāna yoga, which is how do you do removal of this ignorance about my own true nature. And that happens through śravaṇam, mananam, and nidhidhyāsanam. Now, again, as I spoke about the instrument, every task that we do requires an instrument. If I want to see something very close, I need a microscope. If I want to see something far away, then it has to be a telescope. And the important point is that this instrument has to be perfect. It has to be extremely refined for doing some very minute things. And here the topic that we are talking about is subtler than the most subtle. It's the subtlest topic. So then the instrument also has to be supremely refined. So here again, the intellect, the mind is the only instrument that we have. And so using karma yoga and upāsana yoga practices, we need to refine that. And again, they have to be done through the ways that Shastras have taught us. So using the Shastras, doing those meditations, we have to make our mind calm and focused. And once we have this refined mind, then we are prepared for that self-knowledge. So we need to prepare our instrument, and then we need to get into jñāna yoga. Again, as Sir was mentioning, these are the three things that are being mentioned in this shloka is Atmani, Atmana, Atmanam. So again, what we have to do is, let's say if I want to play football in a playground, so then I need a playground, I need a football to play with, and then I need to enjoy that game. I am the one who is enjoyer, or who I am the object or subject for that. So the seventh case, which is the adhikaran, which is like where is the locus of all that is happening. So this self-knowledge happens where? It happens in myself only. And who does that? I only do that. Now here that self, it means actually the mind. So the mind is doing this analysis in the intellect only, in the mind only. And what is the ultimate goal? Atmanam. That is the second case, the object, the karma of in any sentence, that the object is what I want to achieve is the self-knowledge about my own true self. So the mind is doing the analysis inside the mind only to get that self-knowledge about myself. So again, as we saw that there are multiple ways of doing something. For example, if you want to go into a temple, like this big temple in Tiruvannamalai, there are multiple gopurams. So you can go inside the temple from any which way, north, east, west, south. Again, there might be different benefits or pros and cons of each way, but they all reach to the same destination. They will all take you to the temple. But the more important point is that once you have reached the temple, for the garbhagriha to enter there, to get to the very self-knowledge part, you have only one way, which is jñāna yoga. Now, some people might say that, why are we so fanatic about that jñāna yoga is the only way? Why cannot we have any other way, or bhakti yoga or etc.? Because the thing is, the whole problem is because of the ignorance. And ignorance can only be solved via knowledge. Ignorance cannot go away by just swiping it away or any other means. So jnana, knowledge, is the only way to reach there. So however we may reach the temple with n number of ways, but to reach to the garbhagriha, there is only way. And Swamiji says it is better to be fanatic rather than lunatic, because that is the only way to go there. So then we might as well proclaim that rather than saying that no, there might be other ways and all. So jnana, the importance of jnana yoga, the importance of preparing our mind and to make sure that it is self-reflecting and we can understand ourselves, our true nature, that is the sadhana. Now in the next verse, we see that some people would say that, oh, again, we are becoming very, very orthodox in saying that, oh, we have to read only these scriptures and only those people can achieve this knowledge. But that is not the case. In the next verse, Krishna immediately says that Anye tveva majanantaha shrutvanyebhya upāsate tepi chati tarantyeva mrityum shruti parayanaha Shruti Parayanaha. Here, Shruti does not mean our Shruti Granthas. Here, Shruti means listening. Now, what he's trying to say is that it is not necessary that you have to go through a certain Upanishad only, in a certain language, in a certain region only, for you to gain this knowledge. It is possible. Some people go through that Sankhya Yoga, some people go through that Karma Yoga, through this Upanishad way, but some people just listen from their gurus, from somebody who's already learned, who has already gone through that path. Those other people who otherwise don't know it, all they do is they do a committed listening. The important part is the commitment in this listening, and then you have to choose the right guru also, who is already a Brahmanishta and who can do a good communication for you also. So it is not necessary to follow a particular book. There is no official scripture that you must follow. That just makes your job a little easier. But here the idea is that it is open for all. You don't need to be that only in Malayalam or only in English or only in Hindi. It can be in Russian, it can be in German. You can be sitting in Ireland, anywhere. It is open for, there is no male, female. Everybody can achieve this self-knowledge through any means, as long as you're following the right path. Now what happens? That yavat sanjayate kinchit sattvam sthavara jangamam kshetra kshetrajna sanyoga tadvidhi bharatashrabha. Now what he is saying is that ultimately what you have to understand from this knowledge is that whatever is there in this entire world, it is a combination of Purusha and Prakriti. What happens is, because we are so much engrossed in our sensual pleasures and sense organs, that we only see whatever is tangible. So ultimately we end up seeing only the Prakriti part of it. But actually everything is made up of Purusha and Prakriti. Whether it is moving, whether it is stationary, it says sthavara jangamam. Whatever it is made up of these two things. And how all this birth and death and all this happens, because all these sanjayate, it says, everything that identifies with that body-mind complex, with that Prakriti, is the one that is taking birth and rebirth and all. But once you say that, okay, everything is part of these two, and kshetra sanyoga, now that I know that everything is part, it is made up of these two, now I can always get the jnanam that I have to identify with the Purusha, but not the body. And once I do that, that is when I will be liberated of all the suffering. In so many verses, at the end of the day, all we are going to be told is that we need to clarify our vision, that we have to identify to the Purusha part and not the Prakriti part. And it sounds easy, but at the end of the day, that is the most important thing that we have to bring in our nishtha, and that will solve all our problems. In the next verse, now we are going to start to talk about what are the benefits. Jnana Phalam. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishthantam parameshwaram vinashyatsu. This is very, very nice. Vinashyatsu avinashyantam. Yav pashyati sa pashyati. Whoever can see this, he is the one who is actually seeing. So this is very important. See, we think that we are seeing by our eyes, but all that we see is what is tangible and what is just at the surface level. We are not really seeing. We are not the real seers. The real seers are who? That is what we are going to understand from here is samam sarveshu bhuteshu. Again, in the last verse, we saw that everything is made out of Purusha and Prakriti. But then what is the common part in everything that we see? Because from the Prakriti perspective, everything is different. They have different shapes, size, color, form, everything will be different. But then there is samam. There is one thing which is same in everything, which is that Purusha part, the Parameshwaram part. That is the one who is tishthantam. That is who is tishtati in everybody, which is the same. And once you have this sameness vision, this samyak vision, that is when you see what you are ought to see. And this vinashyatsu avinishyantam means you are seeing the imperishable in the perishable. What is imperishable? The Paramatma is imperishable. It's not that the Paramatma does not perish. It is imperishable. It cannot perish. It is not in its nature. For example, it's not that the fire does not become cold. It cannot become cold. It is not in its nature. So once we know that we are actually that imperishable, then all those fears, all those sufferings, all that depression that we get, it will just vanish in a second. So he says that the first benefit, that it is like an anti-depression tablet, that once I identify myself with the common aspect rather than all the distinct Prakriti aspects, that's it. That's the solution. The mistake is we see, and then that is what we believe. All our sense organs are outwardly. So it only looks at the Prakriti part of it. However, the Purusha is the subject. It is inside us. So we need to do a little bit more fine sadhana to get that. In another example, he says that while ocean, rain, river, these are different things that we see tangibly. But at the end, if we identify that it's all water, then it's all problem is solved. For example, another example we can take, whether let's say RCB, the Bangalore team is playing with the Mumbai Indians. Now, if I identify myself as a Bangalorean or I want to make RCB win, then if RCB wins, I will be very happy. If it loses, I'll be very sad. But if I identify myself, let's say with cricket, now whether RCB wins or Mumbai Indians win, I don't care. I will enjoy every six. I will enjoy every wicket. I will enjoy everything that is going on in the match. So it is, the whole thing is about identification. What is that we need to look at? And once I remove the dependence from that temporary, and I again depend myself or I rely myself on that permanent part, the Paramatma part, all my problems are solved. There is nothing else left there. Now, the second benefit that we talk about here is samam pashyan hi sarvatra samavasthitam ishwaram na hinasyatmanatmanam tato yati param gatim. So we first saw that all our depression is gone because we have got the samyak darshan. We see same in everything. Now, this is even going one more step ahead. It's the amritatva prapti. Once I get jnāna chakshu, again, not my normal chakshu, the eyes of wisdom, once I get that, now I see the presence of Paramatma in everything. Samam pashyani sarvatra. Sarvatra, what I see? Samam avasthitam ishwaram. That ishwaram is what I see in everything, everywhere. Now, that is the person who gets the param gatim. That is the person who will get liberated. And another thing is na hinasyatmanatmanam. Like in Ishavasya Upanishad, we have seen that the person, the ajñāni, he does suicide. Suicide can be done in two ways. Like, because I identify myself with the body, so what will happen is body is obviously going to die, then again rebirth, then again die. So who is the cause of this body dying? Again, my karma only. So if I identify with the body, then from that angle, I am basically responsible to kill myself every janma. We have to understand a little bit subtly. And then the second form also, how are we committing suicide, is that we are ignorant about the self, the true nature. And because of that, we are not enjoying its benefits, rather we are suffering. So we've kind of killed our true nature only, because if you don't make use of anything, then it's as good as not existed for us. So that this person who does not kill himself bodily or the higher nature wise is the one who attains that paramgatim, because he sees the Ishwar in everything. So we have to get out of this body identification, and again the same thing is being talked about. Now the next benefit, prakratyeva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvashah. All the actions we are talking about, who is doing all these actions? Kriyamanani sarvashah is done by prakriti eva. Yav pashyati tathatmanam akartaram sa pashyati. Again, the same thing we are talking about is, if we identify with the Prakriti, then I am doing all the actions. Because at the end, the Prakriti, the body-mind complex, is the one who is doing all the actions. And the law of karma is like, if you do the actions, then there is nothing which is going to save you from getting the karma phala also, from the fruits of those actions. It's a fact. If you do a karma, if you become a karta, you will become a bhokta. Whether you hide anywhere, you go under the earth, you do whatever, but you will get the benefit or the suffering out of that. But if you don't even identify with the prakriti or the body-mind complex, then you are akarta. Then it's all is happening in just your presence. Then you are not doing it. Then you become akarta. And once you become akarta, once you identify yourself with Purusha and become akarta, so now there is no more suffering, no more bondage, no more getting the benefit or the suffering out of that. So that person, yav pashyati sapashyati, again and again it is told that this person who sees it like that, that is the person who actually sees, that is the person who is going to get the liberation. Now this is also very beautiful, in which now we are elevated. And until now we had always been thinking that, well, I am a small being, what can I do and all that. But here we are being told that we are actually the Brahman itself. So let's read through it. Yada bhuta prathak bhavam ekastham anupashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadyate tada yada tada. When this happens, that's when you realize that you are actually a Brahman. So Swamiji gives another example and this is a well-known one. When we examine, let's say, a hall or a box, then we see that, okay, there is space inside that box. Similarly, when we see multiple boxes, multiple halls, then we see that all of these boxes or halls have space inside that. Now, once we start seeing more and more, then we see, well, the space is not just inside, the space is outside also. And actually, if we do a little bit of subtle analysis, we realize that it is not that the space is in the boxes, it's that all the boxes are in the space. So, and we have seen in some of the Upanishads that how all the Prakriti came into being, how all the this whole prapancha came into being, that first there was space, then from the space itself was born air, then from air fire came and all those, and then Prithvi came, and then Vanaspati came and Aushadhi came and all those things. So the space itself is the creator, the generator of everything. So everything is in space, and space is like the creator of everything. Now I have gone from a created to a creature. So everything like that. So here we see bhuta prathak bhavam. Bhut prathak means different. All this diversity that we see is coming out from ekastham. Only one thing it is all coming out of. Only that consciousness it is all coming out of. That person who sees this pashyati. Anupashyati means through the way of Shastra. When I see that everything is actually coming out of this one thing only. Tata evacha vistara. Tata means that consciousness is vistaram. It's just an expansion of that consciousness only. That is the person. Then he realizes that I am Brahman itself. I am Brahman himself. And that is when we again attain the liberation. The creator holds his own created body in the dream. For example, sir was mentioning about a dream example, in which when I enter into the dream, I am actually a dream body only. And while I'm in the dream, I feel like I am just one of them. But when I come out of the dream, I realize that the entire dream, the whole city, all the characters in that were I only. So I was not just a created there. I was the creator of the entire thing. So once we wake up from that dream is when we realize that that was whole my creation only. Similarly, in this world also, I only sustain, because everything requires consciousness for its sustenance, for its actual existence. So just like in our example, space was to box, consciousness is to body-mind complex. Now, in this one, we see that now earlier we had gone from the akarta or like doership, and now we are going away from the bhoktaship also. Anaditvan nirgunatvat parmatmayam avyayah sharirasthopi kaunteya na karoti na lipyate. This is very, very nice. For example, Jnani wakes up from the dream of waking world and is still in it. As sir was mentioning that here it says sharirasthopi kaunteya. What happens is these Jnanis don't go out of the body. They're still in the body only. So they are still seeing everything that what you and I are also seeing. For example, what happens in the dream is that the dream world goes away when we wake up. So then there is like a separation of different planes are there. But what happens when the jnanam happens to us in this waking world itself? It's not that we go to some other world to see that, okay, this waking world, I was only the creator. We will still be in this very much world. We will still be in this sharirasthopi. We will be in this body only. But we will now would have been waken up that this whole thing is a dream only. It's like a dream only. So now I'm going to enjoy. Now I'm not going to be bothered about a loss of about something, or if I gain something, if I'm tall, if I'm a child, everything is same. Because now this Paramatma is Avyaya. The one who is experiencing all this is changeless. It is Anadi, because it has never got birth only. Where is the point of it getting into any changes? And there is nirgunatva, there is no attributes also. So it cannot actually go into any change. Changes are generally two types. One is either a substantial change, for example, milk turning into curd, or there is like a form change, for example, gold changing into ornaments. But here nothing changes, because now that I have understood that I am that Paramatma, so now even though I'm living through this body itself, I would be enjoying, everything will be happening in my presence. I can do all the natak that I have to, but from the back of my mind, that instrument, I know that all this is happening just as a like a drishyam, but I remain the drik. So now I don't become a karta, and so I don't even become a bhokta. So now my freedom from enjoyership also happens. Now they are trying to just compare consciousness with, there are two examples generally in the Shastra that we quote, Akasha and Prakasha, because they are very much highly similar to our consciousness principle. Obviously, one thing is that they are inert and consciousness is sentient. That's the most important difference. But other than that, all the pretty much aspects are the same. So, yatha sarvagatam sokshmyadakasham nopalipyate sarvatra sthito dehe tatma nopalipyate. So just like how space is all pervading, sarvagatam, sokshmyadakasham, and it is very subtle. So even though whatever happens in the space doesn't get affected by that. It doesn't get attached by that. If some crime happens or if some arti happens, it doesn't happen to the, doesn't make any difference to the space. Similarly, sarvatra vasthito dehe, it is present in all the bodies and all the beings, but still it does not get attached or affected by anything. That is what the consciousness is. For example, movie screen is also there. Whether there is fire there, whether there is a storm there, it doesn't burn, it doesn't wet. It is always ready for the next movie. And if you are troubled by all the characters in that movie, let's say some sad thing is going on, all you have to realize is, oh, actually it's the movie screen where it is happening. Then we are all fine. We can enjoy the movie, but we don't get suffering out of that. So the difference, the similarity between space and consciousness is both are one, both are all pervading, immovable, changeless. It's very subtle. Because of that subtlety only, nothing attaches to it or it gets impacted by that. And now they're giving an example which is comparing with the light. Yatha prakashatyekaha kritsnam lokamimam ravihi kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. Just like that one sun. Again, it's not about sun, it's about the sunlight. That one sunlight illumines the entire lok, entire world. Krishna means entire, the fullness of it. Similarly, to, like for example, to see anything, we need light. In the same way, to know about anything, we need consciousness. So consciousness is also we need for anything to illumine, we need consciousness. So just like light, consciousness also illumines everything. So as we saw with the Akasha example, with the Prakash also, it is one, it is you cannot break it, you cannot change it, it is immovable. And another thing is that like light, consciousness also needs a medium. If I don't have my hand, we can never know that there is light or not. Similarly, consciousness is always there, but unless there is a reflecting medium, unless there is a body to express it, we will not know that it is there, but it is always there, just like light. Now, this is the last verse. And here again, the big promise, the big marketing that is being done is that we will get moksha, we will get liberation. How? Kshetra kshetra jñayorevam antaram jñāna chakshusha. Through wisdom, through the eyes of wisdom, once we know the difference between kshetra kshetrajño, then bhuta prakritim moksham chaye vidur yanti te param. The ones who know about this difference, they will just not bother about what is going on in this prakriti, what is going on in this world. They will be identifying themselves with the Purusha and not bother about, first of all, they're seeing it through the eyes of wisdom and not sense organs, because once again, sense organs start seeing it, then we will get attached to the Prakriti part of it. And once who know the difference, now they know what is the difference between Purusha and Prakriti, that one is sentient, one is inert, one is changeless, one is changing. And the most important thing which we are talking about is that that consciousness is self-effulgent. It has independent existence. It is the sattva part of it. But everything Prakriti is a dependent existence. Unless we are conscious about this laptop, it does not exist for me. So it has a dependent existence. So once I am relying on the permanent, then all these dependence goes away for me. So Bhut Prakriti Moksham Cha. So I get liberated from all these Prakriti parts of it. So in conclusion, we saw that all we have to know is that because of our ignorance, we are becoming Karta Bhokta, or this rebirth and suffering is happening. Once I know about my true self, that I am a Purusha and not Prakriti, that's when I get to see that right thing, everyone with the same eye. I don't have Rāga and Dvēṣa with everybody, anybody. I become Akarta, I become Abhokta. I elevate myself to the Brahmatvam status. Even though I am in the dream, I'm like awake about the dream. So all the gains and losses and all that thing happens. I'm just enjoying them, not getting attached to them and suffering. So I get liberation. And true self we saw is like an Akasha and Prakasha. And again, the sadhana was to get to do karma yoga, upāsana yoga, śravaṇam, mananam, nidhidhyāsanam. We'll see a little bit more in the Tattva Bodha part of it. What is śravaṇam, mananam? And then finally, we must go through jñāna yoga to remove this ignorance. Cannot stress more upon that the only way to get out of ignorance is knowledge. This ends the chapter 13. Om Tat Satiti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambade Kshetra Vibhaga Yogo Nam Trayodashodhyayah. Now, the topic about Tattva Bodha we are going to look at is Jivishvara Aikya, and again the sadhana and phalam of that. And just to briefly touch upon what is Aikyam is that Atma and Paramatma are just the one. There is just one Shuddha Chaitanya, which is just expressing through matter. And it is just our point of looking at it. Whether it is, if you are looking from through Shariratrayam, then it becomes Jivatma. If you are looking at from the total matter, it becomes Paramatma. And if there is an absence of medium, then it is just Shuddha Chaitanya, because then we cannot really interact with it or transact with it. And again, as we saw earlier also, the most important difference is that consciousness is swatantra. It has its own existence. It is sattva. But the anatma, the other, so we saw Atma, Paramatma, Jivatma, Paramatma, and then the other thing is Anatma. Anatma does not have its own existence. It is reliant upon Atma. Just like clay and pot. Pot does not have its own existence, while clay does. So now, as we saw from the Gita part also, the sadhana is what? We have to remove our ignorance through jnana yoga. The 3 steps were śravaṇam, mananam, nidhidhyāsanam. Śravaṇ means systematic and continuous listening for a length of time from a competent guru. Your guru obviously has to be competent. You have to do systematically. You cannot be like, first we read chapter 1, then we read chapter 8. Obviously it's not about Gita's chapter, but in general example, there has to be a system. It has to be continuous for a good length. Then only that śravaṇam is of any use. And then once we have heard, we will obviously get doubts. We have to clarify those doubts. We are not a system where we say, okay, this is what it is and this is you have to believe. No, you have to ask questions. Questions are actually encouraged. Once only then you can actually get nishtha out of it. You can actually have that conviction, because in nidhidhyāsanam, the conviction is very important. We have to assimilate. For example, if I've learned martial arts, I've become a black belt holder, but I've never practiced it. I've never done any sparring. Then I will never know that when I am actually in some self-defense situation, what type of moves I will be actually making, and will it really help me or not. You have to refine yourself. You have to see, okay, here I know this has to be done. This is the trick, but I'm lacking here. So then I have to improve myself. So that is very important. Another way of knowing that is FIR. What is the frequency, intensity, and response time frame there. Then the phalam, again, there are 2 phalam. One is Jivan Mukti you get, and Videha Mukti or Videha Mukti from this jnanam. Jivan Mukti is at the mental level, and the same thing when we attain at the physical level, it is called Videha Mukti. What we get with this knowledge is, one is independence. Now, whether I have this thing, I have this being, or I don't have, something gets with me, something I've lost, I become swatantra of all that. I don't have any problems, because again, I'm not identifying with the Prakriti. I get fulfillment, because what happens is we get all these cravings because we feel we are apurna. Once I know that I am Purnatma, once I know that I'm Atma, I am the one which is everywhere, now I'm not limited. So if I'm not limited, where is the need to mass anything? So that fulfillment comes out of that. And equanimity. I get that mental toughness, whatever situation happens, I don't get bothered that sukha dukkha samay kritva labha labho jaya jayo. That situation happens, that now I don't have any problems. And this is happening while I am alive. Now, Videha Mukti, what happens is, like, if we, all the ajnanis, they get into rebirth because they keep doing karma, they keep getting karma phala, and then that ultimately fructifies into bodies and all. But what happens with the jnani is that with, there are 3 types of karmas that happen. Is one is the sanchit karma. Whatever I do, they go into a big database. And then every janma, I'm given one piece of it, which is like that prarabdha, which I have to exhaust in this janma. And whatever I do in this janma becomes the agami that I keep. And then if whatever I've exhausted is there, otherwise all that gets stored back into the big database. Now, for Jnani, what happens is after Jnana Yoga, that big database, that sanchit karma, that gets burnt. That's the big good news for us. And the prarabdha obviously will get exhausted with this body, and then they avoid all the agami. So their whole karma is exhausted, all their prarabdha is exhausted, all their so there is no need, there is no raw material left for them to take a rebirth. So now they have there is no rebirth, so there is no deha, so they have gone videha mukti. So the benefit of all this is ultimately that we will get liberated from all the sufferings and we will know our true nature. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Ullas. As usual, an extraordinary presentation. Ullas is an all-rounder, good in everything that he does, and he's been able to give a very clear understanding of the concluding part of the 13th chapter. The rest of my job is to prepare you for the quiz, that teaching quiz that Neeta is going to ask you. I know Ullas has done a complete job, but just like a teacher who knows the question paper, I'll be dropping big hints about what are you going to expect right now in the questions. Now, as explained already by Ullas in this part of the concluding part of the 13th chapter, Shri Krishna brings about various sadhanas. The sadhanas can be classified into two. Those sadhanas require yogyata and those sadhanas for jnana. For jnana yogyata, the two things that are required is karma yoga and upāsana yoga. Why karma yoga? All of us have intrinsic impurities of malam in the mind, and it is through karma yoga these malams get washed off. Our mind is predominantly extrovert, and therefore it is restless. Through upāsana yoga, through meditation, the obstacle that removes is the restlessness of the mind. And therefore, when the teacher is speaking to you, your attention is available because your mind is now available. Śravaṇam is to be attentive to the message of the teacher, and the teacher has only one thing. Ya pashyati sa pashyati. Change your perspective. Stop seeing yourself as this body. I am not the body. I am the embodied. I am the one who's using the body. And that is the whole message of through śravaṇam. But then doubts come. How can I be that? How can I be all-pervading? How can I be? I am Atma, Brahma, the Mahavakya, Jivatma, Paramatma, Kyam. It's too difficult to accept. But then the teacher has her own method of convincing you to work on all your doubts until we come to doubt-free knowledge. Now I know I am Atma, I am Brahma, I am that. And this body-mind is only a temporary medium. But yet, the moment I come out of the class, the moment I'm insulted, the moment I'm hurt, immediately I have various vasanas. What is this vasanas? Vasanas are because of long body identification, those limited tendencies of the sense of limitation because I have lived as a body for so long, that miserliness, that greed, that sense of smallness keeps on coming. And in real life, I am Atma, Brahma does not make sense at all. But if you work on it systematically, then nidhidhyāsanam helps you to remove all these, what are called viparita bhavana, the habitual notions of limitations. And that is what Shri Krishna is emphasizing. Once you have done that, then what is there? You have a lot of benefits. Ya pashyati sa pashyati. To be able to see very clearly who you are. Once you log on to your higher nature, Atma upammena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna. You are able to see yourself in everybody and everything. That is the vishalata buddhi that comes. The moment I'm logged to my higher self, my body-mind has to still do a lot of things. But this is called buddhi yukto jahati ube sukrute dushkrute tasmad yogaya yujyasya yogaha karmasu kaushal. The skill in action is understanding I'm not this body-mind complex. Therefore, when I allow my body mind to do something, I come from the state of being akarta, abhokta. And when there is akarta, there is abhokta. The hridaya granthi is broken. There is no more punya papa. There is no more punarjanma. This understanding, like a person who's woken up from the dream and the dream continues, you will be able to say the whole dream world is my own creation. So to the whole world as Atma is none other than myself. I become the creator. My eva sakalam jatam, my sarvam pratishtitam, my sarvam layam yati, tad brahmadvayam asmayam aham. And this is the jump from being the limited creature to creator. And then what happens? Yad gatva na nivartante tad dhamma paramam mama. There is no more coming back. Na bhuya abhijayate. There is no more rebirth for such a person. One who has that nishta, I am Atma Brahma. The final part, Shri Krishna gives us two comparisons of Atma. There can be real no comparison because there is nothing like Atma in the world. But then the nearest that comes is space, and a little less than that is light. And two things to understand if you want to compare Atma to space or light is to understand what is this immanent and transcendental. For example, space is in and through me, and space is all pervading. Space is unaffected by anything that happens to my body, mind, that is asangatvam. Space cannot be divided, space does not move, space is akarta, space is abhokta. But the only difference between space, and therefore the problem of the example of light is brought in. Light signifies consciousness. Light signifies illumination. Light makes things known. And therefore, you can say conscious space is Atma. Let us see if that will help us to answer the difficult quiz, because the quiz is definitely difficult, and I appreciate Neeta and her team to prepare this set of questions for us. Neeta, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We are doing this quiz not for the intellectual purpose, but for discovering ourselves, for inner strength and happiness. In the verse, verse 25, the word Atma occurs 3 times. Ullas spoke about it. Each time it means slightly different. Can you tell what the meaning is for each time? Vidya will help.
First time Atmani here means it means a place where one can find Atma within one's own heart. Second, right. Atmanam, it means Sachidananda Atma. And third, Atmana means it refers to the instrument to acquire Atma jñāna.
Yeah. We come to know the Atma through the instrument of Atma. Atma here refers to the mind. The instrument is the mind. In the next question. So Ullas mentioned there are 5 stages to this knowledge and liberation. I have scrambled them. Can you unscramble these? And also, what does each what do we get with at each stage if we perform it properly? Go through it properly.
Karma Yoga is Mala Nivritti.
True.
And Upāsana Yoga is Vikshepa Nivritti. Śravaṇam is Ajnana Nivritti. Mananam is Samshaya Nivritti. Nidhidhyāsanam, Vasana Nivritti.
Right, very nice. Vasana, sir explained us, is removal of habitual reaction. These nidhidhyāsanam is not, these are not small steps. These are steps which will take a long time. For us to remove our habitual reaction. We'll recognize that as we come closer and closer. Okay, next, sir. Supposing a person has gone through the first 2 or 3 stages in one lifetime, then and then he passes away without completing the entire, he doesn't get liberation. So does he have to start with Karma Yoga again in the next Janma?
No.
Yeah, he doesn't have to. He will start from wherever he stops. So if he's gone through karma yoga and he's gone through upāsana yoga, and then he's heard the the teacher and then gone through systematic teaching, then he will have to go through mananam and nidhidhyāsanam. The spiritual prodigy means the one who has gone through the first 4 stages in the Purva Janam. Is that true or false? Vidya?
Yes. Now here it's true.
Yes. It's true. The person who, like Adi Shankaracharya, he already had, he knew, he had the knowledge. In the verse 25, so enter. What are the different ways the people do their sadhanas according to Sri Krishna? The 5 stages is what we're talking about, we're asking. The 5 stages which you have to go through to get the knowledge.
First stage is with karma yoga. Some people start with karma yoga. Some others with jnana yoga or sankhyena yogena. And some just need the reinforcement of what they had gathered in their previous lives, or jnāna.
Yeah, so basically it's summarizing, and we, that's what Sri Krishna is saying, that some people will start from karma yoga, but others might just start from, upāsana or sankhya, and then others might just have to do nidhidhyāsanam. That's what he's telling in this verse. The sadhana from where we start depends on our previous lives. Okay. Śravaṇam need not necessarily be the study of the original scriptures themselves. Again, Ullas will explain. True or false?
True.
True. Vedanta doesn't have to refer to any one language. It doesn't have to, it refers to the content of the teaching and the teaching. What liberates is not the Vedas, but rather its content. Even if one doesn't study Vedas, one can get liberation. Naturally, we'll have a question. Why do we insist that everybody has to go through the door of jnanam? It looks as though Vedanta is adamant and fanatic. Why is Vedanta so insistent? Why do we insist that knowledge is the most important thing? You remember, Ullas said the Garbhagriha is, everybody has to come to Garbhagriha, has to get the knowledge. Vidya?
Yes. Samsara is caused by ignorance of our true nature. So I miss that I am Atma and I take myself as an Atma.
Yeah.
So that is the reason I feel.
Yeah, so I miss, I make a mistake and I see myself as an Atma, and then that's the reason I need to remove that ignorance and recognize my real nature, and that can be done only by this knowledge. So we have finished the topic sadhanas, and now we will go through the final topic in this chapter of jnāna phalam. What is the benefit of this knowledge? Why are we going on saying take this knowledge, take this knowledge? In the 28th verse, Krishna mentions, from now he mentions the one benefit in each verse. What is the benefit he's mentioning in this verse? Right perspective of the world, samyak darshanam, the inherent oneness behind the superficial duality. We see the perishable prakriti, but we are aware of the imperishable purusha, all of the above.
It's all of the above.
Yeah, it all means the same thing, that we need to change our perspective. We are not the Prakriti, but the Purusha. In the 29th verse, what is the benefit mentioned by Sri Krishna? Name the benefit.
Amritatva praptihi.
Yeah, here Krishna is saying param gatim, and our teacher has given it as amritatva prapti, means the same thing. We enjoy immortality. Does it mean that we suddenly become immortal? No, we don't. We just recognize that we are always that immortal. We are always immortal. I, as the Atma, am immortal. Which benefit of self-knowledge does Krishna mention in the 30th verse, in this verse?
akartratva praptihi.
Yeah, in the last fourth segment, we can see akartaram sapashyati. He recognizes that he's a karta. He is Purusha is my real nature, which is a karta. All actions are done by Prakriti. Prakriti abhimana makes me the karta. Dropping of this Prakriti abhimana and owning up of that I am the Purusha will take us out of both kartritvam and bhoktritvam. What is the benefit mentioned here?
The 31st verse.
Yeah.
It's Brahmatva Praptihi.
Yeah, I am that Brahman. Remember he said that you recognize, the boxes are in space, and rather than the space is in the box. So I recognize that I am Brahman, the Jagat Karanam, the Jagat Adhishtanam. This world, this body is superimposed on me, the Atma. I, just like as a dreamer, I'm a creature within the dream. Whereas as the waker, I am the creator of the dream, right? Same way with self-knowledge, I recognize I am the creator of this world and not a creature of this world. I'm not the small self which I see in the mirror. Everything is born out of me, the consciousness principle. It's a big leap. We will come to this, but we need to go through this again and again and again. And that's why this revision. Next. True or false? We can stop the cycle of karmas by balancing them out and achieve liberation. So if I do some bad karma, I will, do some good karma, and I think I can balance out all this whole karma cycle. Is it true or false?
False.
Yeah, I cannot balance this. We can never balance bad karmas with good karmas, nor can we exhaust them without jnanam. We claim our higher nature and recognize that karma is not my true nature, that is of the Prakriti. If Vedanta is correctly assimilated, it will promote dharma.
It's true.
Absolutely true. We cannot be thinking that, oh, if I recognize myself as the Purusha, then I can do anything at the Prakriti level. No, no, no. That is not possible. You will not be able to come to this level if you go the adharmic way. Rāga Dvēṣa gets weakened because of samadarshanam.
True.
Yeah, one of the benefits Ullasan mentioned is we drop our likes and dislikes, strong likes and dislikes. Vairagya sets in. In the 32nd verse, what is the advantage or what is the benefit given of this knowledge? What do we get from this Atma jnana?
One loses the fear of death.
Yes. I recognize that I am not subject to decay, avyaya. I am avyaya. And that's why, I don't feel scared about death. I recognize death is only of the body. Next. In again the same verse, what does Krishna mean by na karoti na nipyate? Does it mean I'm a karta bhokta? Does it mean I'm not the doer of the actions?
It means both.
Yeah, means that I am neither the doer nor the bhokta of the actions. Yeah. Okay. In the 33rd verse, we heard the example of space. Which of the following statements are true? Atma, like Akasha, is one. Atma, like Akasha, is subtle. In fact, it's even subtler than Akasha. Atma, like Akasha, is, although associated with everything, it does not get tainted by them. Sir explained us eminent and transcendental. Atma is like Akasha, but it is not Akasha. It is not space. Akasha is inert, achetna tattvam, whereas Atma is chetna tattvam. It is I'm not getting the word. It is chetna.
it's all are true.
Yeah, all are true. I'll come to the word. Conscious. Just as the next verse, just as the sun consciousness is compared to light, and just as the sun illuminates the entire universe with light, the dash within the body makes it also illuminates everything, makes it sentient.
It's consciousness.
Yes, consciousness. And the word I was looking for is Atma is sentient, whereas Akasha is not sentient. It is inert. So consciousness, like the light, illuminates the entire universe. And that's the comparison Krishna is making in this verse. The final verse, Krishna gives one more benefit. What is that? This is the final verse of this chapter.
It's moksha.
Yeah, you achieve liberation. Again, liberation is just recognizing our true nature. There's nothing, something there's going to happen to you. You recognize that you were always liberated, but you now recognize that. The one who can discriminate between Kshetra and Kshetrajna with the knowledge, with the jñāna chakshu, with the eyes of wisdom, and claim himself as Atma and recognize that his true nature is always, that he was always free. Thank you. Hari Om. Thank you, Vidya.
Thank you very much, dear Neeta and Vidya Madam, for that excellent teaching quiz of this very difficult chapter. Our thanks to Sri Ullas for explaining it, all the difficult concepts in it. The 13th chapter is surely one of the most difficult to understand chapters in the entire Gita. And Ullas has explained it in such clear, simple terms. Thank you. Our thanks to Hegde sir for helping us digest it all. And finally, dear viewers, we express our gratitude to you for staying with us through this journey. Please log in for our Bhagavad Gita verse by verse session 148 on 19th May for the recap of the second and final set of verses of chapter 18. Please log in at 6:45 p.m. sharp. Thank you. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Tat Sat.